Hello everyone again, it's me Justin back for another 1001 movie review you must see before you die. Tonight I will be reviewing The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari from 1919, directed by Robert Weine. It's a German silent film. Some consider it the first horror movie ever made, but I didn't really see it as like a horror film. I felt it was more like psychological thriller just because it was so weird. Getting right to my review, here's what I wrote down about it. First thing I noticed was the extremely odd opening of the first scene of the movie. I was like, did I start the movie in like the middle of the movie or something? Like, is there something wrong with the DVD? Just because it was so odd. Like, the first scene was just so odd. Like, because like it starts off with two guys sitting in a garden, and I was like, okay, what's going on? And like then I realized that, and then obviously you find out that one of the guys starts to tell a story, and that's where the movie really begins. But really, it's just a really odd opening scene. Then my second point that I wrote down is the use of strange angles, and the scenery in this movie is just amazingly strange. You know, I mean, I was thinking about like doing a count of how many triangles you can see within the backgrounds of the movie sets. It's just extremely odd use of angles within the movie, and I found that to be very interesting. And moving on to point 3, this ties into the whole odd backgrounds within the movie. There's this scene where the town clerk, he's sitting on what I thought was, at first I thought he was like 7 feet tall, and I thought maybe it was a forced perspective shot, but it turns out he was just sitting on a very tall stool, and I found that to be really, really strange. I mean, at first I thought it was just forced perspective, but it turned out to be a very high stool, and like I couldn't really figure out why why he was sitting on a very high stool. But I figured, oh, it must be Weine just trying to make an extremely odd-looking film for the backgrounds of each of the scenes. Anyway, moving on. The actor who plays Dr. Caligari, it's really strange. Like, you think in these early films, you wonder if they were wearing makeup or not. And obviously, a movie that comes to mind is Nosferatu, which I will be reviewing in a few weeks, obviously, because that's a movie that's in 1001 movies you must see before you die. And he just looks so strange. Like, you wonder, like, was he wearing makeup, or was he was that odd to begin with? I mean, it was really a really odd looking actor. But I figured, he must have been wearing makeup, and there's a key point that reveals this later on in the movie, which I'll get to later on. Point 5, somnambulist. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I was like, what the heck is a somnambulist? So I figured, I would go on Google and look it up right now. Okay, somnambulist. Okay, here's Wikipedia. Oh, it has to do with sleepwalking, which makes perfect sense within this movie, because the guy that's in the so-called Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is a somnambulist, is a sleepwalker. So, okay, this makes perfect sense. Why couldn't I have figured this out on my own? I had to use Wikipedia and look like an idiot. Anyway, moving on. There's a scene where Dr. Gali comes to, I guess it's a town fair in Germany, and he sets up his display, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and there's an actor that's in the audience when he wakes up the somnambulist, who's been apparently sleeping for 25 years. To me, he looks a lot like Marty McFly, and like I was like, oh my gosh, that must be Michael J. Fox's great-great-grandfather. It was just a funny little moment in the movie that I enjoyed. I was like, oh my god, Marty McFly's in this movie. He must have time traveled with the DeLorean. Anyway, it's just a tiny little moment in the movie that I got a little laugh out of. Anyway, well, who didn't see that coming? the guy who asked how long he had to live, he asked this to the somnambulist because Dr. Caligari said the somnambulist was able to answer any question, and Marty McFly's great grandfather asked how long he has to live, and the somnambulist replies, "Oh, you will die within tonight." And of course, Marty McFly's great grandfather ends up getting killed by the somnambulist, no less. So who didn't see that coming from a mile away? And I wonder if the audience back then were able to pick up on this and say the same thing that I'm saying now in the year 2008. Moving on, really the thing that stood out to me most is these really tall stools and these forced perspective, and I kept thinking, is this a forced perspective shot or not? And mainly, I don't think there were any forced perspective shots in this movie, because I don't think there was anyone that really looked to truly be 7 feet tall, while the other actor was like a normal size actor. So I think it was just the really odd backgrounds that made me think of, oh, maybe this is forced perspective. But honestly, thinking now, I don't think there were any forced perspective shots within the movie. But getting back to the sets in this movie, I mean, they were more amazingly visually to me than the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Oh, and I'm sure that'll stir up a shitstorm from all the Lord of the Ring fanboys that are watching this review right now. So you know what? That's my opinion, and I hate the Lord of the Rings movies. I think they're extremely overrated, and I'm sure I'm going to have nothing nice to say about them years from now when I actually get around to reviewing them, because they all are in 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. Anyway, moving on. There's a scene where Olsen's the detective, and there's a couple murders in this movie, and Olsen has a daughter, and she actually, you know what? I'm kind of confused, because there's two people in this movie. I don't know if they're the same person or not. There's Olsen and there's Francis. Francis I'll get to later on in this review, who are in this movie, but I'm pretty sure that Olsen is the detective who is investigating the murders of the somnambulist / Dr. Caligari, because he's ordering the somnambulist through sleepwalking and some kind of psychological practice to murder these people. And there's a scene in it where Olsen's daughter goes into Caligari's exhibit, and I was thinking to myself, oh, I wonder if this was the first time ever where the audience screams, "Don't go in there, don't go in there!" Like when you see, when you watch a horror movie today, and somebody goes to investigate a strange noise, and the audience screams, "Oh, don't go out there, don't go out there!" I was wondering if maybe this was the first instance, but thinking back then, I don't think people really had any idea what they were watching, obviously, because this is considered the first horror movie ever, so people were probably just too shocked to scream anything, because they were visually they were probably in awe of these sets that Weine had set up, and it's just I don't think they were actually screaming, "Don't go in there." But anyway, moving on, there's a nice little mislead when the somnambulist goes to kill Olsen's daughter. You think he's having a moment of compassion when he sees how beautiful she is, and you think oh, he's not going to kill her, but she wakes up, and then obviously he kills her anyway. Well, he doesn't actually get around to killing her, and this is what leads Olsen to find out who Dr. Caligari is. And anyway, moving on, there's a scene where they're interrogating Caligari, that you see these stripes on his hand, and I think there were 3 or 4 stripes, and I wondered to myself, did each stripe significant? Did the stripes have to do with each murder that the somnambulist commits? And I wondered that myself, if maybe that had anything to do with it, or if it was just an odd touch by Weine, and just to make that movie even more strange visually. But I think maybe, just maybe, it had to do with each murder that the somnambulist commits.